You also have your own very busy functional medicine practice. You've seen lots of clients over the years. Is there any particular one or any particular case you remember most, you won't forget ever?
Yeah, I tend to remember the kids the most because as a parent myself and someone who cares a lot about kids and future generations, it really like moves me when I see kids who are suffering because, well, for all of the obvious reasons. I mean, one is that kids really have very little control or influence over their environment, and so whereas adults, we have the power to make those choices ourselves, kids don't really have that in most cases. And if a kid acquires a disease early in life, they're going to suffer for their entire life, so many years. So it's really heartbreaking. I remember one kid who has something that is called sensory processing disorder, and it's a fairly new diagnosis. I'm not sure if it's even useful, but it's on the autism spectrum. So he couldn't really tolerate physical contact. He clothing and anything that touched his skin would really bother him a lot, so he was very picky about what he wore. He had a little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder as well, so he wouldn't go to the bathroom outside of the house, which meant that his parents had to come pick him up at school, like in the middle of the day and bring him home to use the bathroom. It was, really a big problem for his teachers. If they were getting ready to go out to dinner or something or leave the house, if his shirt was bothering him, he would just lie on the floor and be kicking and screaming and, inconsolable. And for half hour, an hour, it would make them late. So it was a real problem in their life. And, you went to psychologists, psychiatrists, conventional doctors, and all they had to offer was drugs, stimulants or antidepressants, antipsychotics, all these drugs. And they tried all of them, but though they would help in some ways, they would often make other symptoms worse or create new symptoms that weren't there in the first place. And he would become very kind of dead. He had no affect. He would be flat emotionally, and they just didn't like what happened to him on these drugs. Nobody ever suggested that it could have anything to do with his diet, food intolerances, anything to do with his gut health. And we ran a full, battery of tests, as we always do. We found out he was gluten and dairy intolerant. We found out he had severe fungal overgrowth in his gut and SIBO, bacterial overgrowth in his small intestine, along with a number of other issues, iron deficiency, B12 deficiency, because of all the problems in his gut. So we did a fairly straightforward treatment, some botanicals or herbs and supplements for the SIBO and the fungal overgrowth. We took him off gluten and dairy. And within a relatively short period of time, maybe 3 months, his teacher called his parents up and said, "I don't know who this kid is you're sending to school, but it's not who it was before. He used the bathroom for the first time ever at school today, and his sensory processing disorder almost went away completely." And his parents were just blown away and they were very happy, but in some ways upset that nobody had ever even suggested that as a possibility after all those years of suffering. So I feel for all the kids that are out there that are going through this whose parents are not aware of this as a possibility, and just hope that we can get this word out to as many people as possible so we can help not only kids but adults who are suffering from these problems.